Hi, my name is Genevieve Bangert, and the music piece I will be discussing is Tchaikovsky's The Nutcracker, Opus 71, number 14, the Pas de Deux. So, the Pas de Deux piece is from the Romantic period, and within the piece, you can hear strings, brass, woodwinds, and percussion instruments. For strings, it's more specifically violins, violas, cellos, bass, and harps are the big one within the string family. Then for woodwinds, you can hear flutes, piccolo, oboe, different types of clarinets, bassoon, and for brass, horns, trumpets, and trombones are big. And for percussion, timpani and cymbals are the major instruments you can hear. Now, this piece has a lot going on, and the version I listened to was 5 minutes long. And the first few seconds of the song start out with this beautiful harp line that it starts out piano and very dreamlike, almost like it's lulling you to sleep. And the tempo starts out adagio, but after this short intro, the strings enter at 13 seconds and the tempo stays the same, but they play this magical descending scale that's packed with emotion, and it almost sounds like someone's desperately trying to grasp something but can't reach it. And I think it sounds peaceful, but in a sad way. Now, this descending scale is a major pattern throughout the entire piece, and it comes back through the woodwinds at 59 seconds and the strings again at 1 minute and 16 seconds. But back to where we were at, the strings decrescendo after this descending scale, and the harp line continues underneath until 29 seconds when they rapidly crescendo and swell to create this excited emotion. And I like to think of it almost like a kid getting really excited really quickly over seeing something fun, like getting a piece of candy or something. They just go really quickly. Now, the decrescendo followed by the sharp crescendo is another main pattern throughout the piece, and I feel like the continual switching back and forth between piano and forte dynamics creates this almost like swinging motion within the piece that, like I said, it almost feels like someone's trying to grasp something, like they are on a swing, like reaching for it, but they can't quite reach it, and they just keep swinging back and forth over and over again trying to reach it. Now, the middle section is very different from the beginning, and it starts around 1 minute 55 seconds. And I think it's an oboe playing at this point, and it sounds very desperate. The following cello and strings are playing with it. They sound very confused yet determined to try and win their coveted prize. And I think this emotion is symbolized by like a continual raising in pitch by all the instrument groups as they build back to an increasing tempo, which is andante rather than the adagio it started out with. At this point, every group is sounding very insistent and focused until they get to 2 minutes and 46 seconds, and the horns decrease in pitch, and it sounds like the whole orchestra has come to a crashing halt as the texture gets thinner and thinner, and then it's just horns playing forte. Now, the music quickly builds up to a climax of like the intense climax of the whole piece at this point, which I'd argue is between 3 minutes and 9 seconds and 3:37 or 3:50, depending on how you interpreted it. And it's so intense and overwhelming, but that main melody of do 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 do, even at a quick tempo, keeps the piece very focused. The music drops off in intensity after this point, but maintains a similar musical idea until 4 minutes and 25 seconds when the piece completely shifts after one big hit of the timpani. And then there's a quick woodwind section followed by a string section that builds from mezzo piano to fortissimo. The timpani gives a big fortissimo rumble with short string, woodwind, and horn notes breaking it up, and then concluding the piece with this definitive thud that almost leaves the audience wondering where the dreamy sound from the beginning of the piece went, and it creates this emotion that moves the audience to like this crazy definitive reality, is like I'd like to put it. Now, what I enjoyed about this selected piece was how emotional it is and how it builds from thin texture to thick texture. So like starting out with just the harp at the beginning and the strings, and then it builds to like the entire orchestra at the climax. And I chose it because I get nostalgic every time I hear it, because I remember watching the Nutcracker as a little girl and remembering hearing how exhilarating the climax and the descending scale was, despite its musical simplicity. Like, it's literally just a scale, but it's so beautiful. And I rediscovered the piece last year from a video of a girl talking about it, and she literally laid on the floor because of how crazy, like how emotional that section is, and the whole piece is like that, and it moves me to feel like I'm almost in the fantasy with them, and it's just so powerful. Now, a movie scene, like a type of movie scene I think would fit best with this is definitely a dramatic movie scene. What I like to picture is someone like running, frolicking through a field. It's very calm and peaceful, and then they run to a cliff edge, and then they're falling off the cliff edge, and it just gets like crazier and crazier. And but I tell people about this piece of work is that it's very intense and magical as it gradually builds in texture and intensity. And it's one of the best pieces from the Nutcracker. The dance in the actual ballet is beautiful, and through the music, you can almost feel the chemistry on stage without even having to watch it. It's just that good. Some other miscellaneous observations I noticed were in the middle of the piece around 150, there's little ascending string lines that are going on underneath the oboe line that I feel build some suspense within the piece. And I also noticed that the harp, despite it being like a common denominator throughout the whole thing, it's not always the most prominent, but it's like the underlying driver of the piece and maintains the magical feeling that you know the Nutcracker by. And there are also some chaotic piccolo lines around 3 minutes and 40 seconds that are very quiet, but you can hear them in the background, that add to the overwhelming feeling during the climax of the song that I didn't really notice until I deeply listened to the piece. And that was my analysis of the pas de deux from the Nutcracker.